Yeah. So when we talk about the test strategy, we are going to say how we are going to perform the testing. Overall, big picture of how we are going to have the testing. That's what we were considering under the test strategy. Example, what we were talking about the overview or scope, what kind of testing we are going to have. So that information we were covering. And then it is the test methodology which we were covering, in the sense how many levels or what kind of testing we are going to have, what are the roles of each and every member in the team, so that we were talking about, and what are the responsibilities you have, what is the change management procedure. Change management, when we say change management, the meaning is that uh, when some changes need to be added, okay, or to the existing functionality. So in that case, that is what we have it as a change management. Okay, or existing new roles need to be added, or it is like a new functionality need to be existing functionality need to be revised. So those kind of things which comes under the change management. Okay, so that particular process. And then it is the test environment specifications, like what is the data requirement, what kind of data we need, and also moreover is the software, hardware, okay, and backup and restore. So those are the aspects which we were talking about in the test environment. All this is required. Okay, out of that we usually talk about backup and restore. Why we need the backup and restore? In the sense, whenever you are performing that activity, so that whatever the data you have, that little data need to be saved. Okay, so that if something goes wrong, you should be able to restore it back. So that is something like the backup and restore mechanism we need to have. Testing tools also we will be using. Okay, we are going to list out the testing tools under the strategy. What kind of testing? Is it a manual testing you have, or automation testing you have? In the automation also, right? So what level of testing we are going to have? And if we remember, we were talking about mainly the automation is used, okay, especially the record and playback features, or like repetitive tasks. When you have, in that case, we go for automation, and that particular feature is mainly used for the regression testing purpose, so that when a new functionality is added to the existing application, that is not impacted. Okay, so that because of the new functionality, whether it may be adding some new piece of code to the system, or whether it may be revising the existing piece of code, that case the existing functionality is not disturbed. That is what we call it as a regression testing. Okay, oh, actually we cover that topic also tomorrow. Okay, so the testing, what is mean by the unit testing, what is mean by regression testing, okay, what is mean by integration testing. Those are the things we are going to cover. And then the load testing also is there. So load testing is one more concept you have. I think we were talking about, like, let us say you are going to build a site, and that particular site is going to be used or accessed by 10,000 people. Okay, example. In that case, it is practically impossible for 10,000 people to log in at the same time and perform actions. What we will be doing there, so we are going to simulate that, assuming that 10,000 people, if you log in once, how the system is going to behave, or how the site is going to work. That is what we are going to call it as a load testing. Okay, usually you have Silk and also Load Runner. Okay, some of those tools were there. Okay, so like they use for the load testing perspective. Like if at all you are following IPL, the good example now. Okay, so IPL, when you want to see, right? So in that case, you may be having some online streaming apps, okay? Like, what is that? You have Zillow, okay? So Zillow is one of the app, right? So something like that, Sling TV. So those are the tools. I know a couple, okay? I'm just saying, like there may be multiple. So they are going to have it. In that case, if you just try to see, they already do the testing to some extent, like how many people will be logging in. Okay, assuming what is the server capacity, what is the bandwidth of the system. So all those things they look into. That is what they cover under the load testing. Okay. So like 100,000 people may be logging in at the same time. Okay. At that time, the site should not fail. So that is what you need to test it out. Similarly, the release control. Release control is a mechanism where we move the code from one instance to the other instance, like from development to testing or QA. And once it is approval is done, you move it to the production instance. So that is production or the live instance. So that is something like the release control we talk. And at the same time, in the same test strategy document, you need to write the risk analysis. What is the risk we are going to have? What is the risk analysis? What is the risk analysis? We need to see the risks with this particular execution of the testing. Okay. And what is the mitigation plan also we need to have the detail. Okay. Risk analysis has to be done and the mitigation plan. Example, in our yesterday's case, we were talking about we have 100 test cases to cover in 10 days with 2 resources. Now let us assume for whatever the reasons, okay, their family or personal or let us say something else, they are stuck in a high priority production issue, right? In that case, one of the resources is not working. Now, what is the option you have? Is it possible for one resource to complete all the test cases? Okay. So that is what you need to risk. We need to analyze that risk. Okay. In that case, usually the mitigation plan, what they do, if the situation like that comes, okay, so the first one companies, what they do is, what is the backup option? Is there some other person who can immediately help us with this? Okay, that is the first scenario. No, we don't have. Now that comes to the next mitigation step. Okay, out of 100 test cases, how many test cases we need? Okay, so like mandatory or compulsory scenarios. Okay, so that particular case, we are going to have the mitigation plan that is going to be listed out. Then immediately what they do is test manager, development manager, okay, product owner, they just sit and then try to see the list of test cases and they say, yes, these are the mandatory or must have ones. Okay, if you have it, so must have test cases I need to have. So that is something like the risk analysis we are going to have. And then it is a review and approvals we will be having. Okay, so we need to have review and approvals in the sense, what is this test strategy review? Who is going to review this test strategy and who is going to approve that? Okay, proper signatures. Okay, nowadays even you have DocuSign as one of the signature mechanism, you can try to get that. Okay, so that is what we will be having in case of the approvals. What are the approvals we were talking about? Like if at all we just look at yesterday's list, we have the review and approvals, right? So we have multiple people. Okay, usually these are the reviews and approvals we have. Okay, who will be doing? Usually system administrator will be there, project manager will be there, development team will be there. Okay, business teams will be there. Of course, our testing team also will be there. Okay, so like QA team or testing team, they all approve this. Okay, so approve in the sense like they are all agreeing upon that particular point. Okay, how many we are like this is a strategy, this is what we are going to do. Okay, we are all in agreement for that one, so that it is all like at later in the down the lane, right? Someone should not say that, okay, we have agreed upon for something, okay, you did not do that. It is like when most of the companies, to be honest, right, when everything is working fine, it works fine. If something goes wrong, blame game starts. Okay, at that time, now the teams need to make sure that, okay, everything is documented, whatever the word, okay, like each and every word they speak in the meetings. Okay, everything is documented and then that is all approved and also reviewed and approval. So everyone is in agreement with that. Okay, so that is what that's what all counts here. Okay, so this is all what we were talking about in the test strategy. Okay, now today we will just try to review, okay, the test plan. Okay, how we are going to have, what are the objectives we are going to have, what we will be writing in the test plan. So these are just the list we have. Okay, we will be working on actually writing these particular cases. Okay, once we complete the test case, okay, we will be starting working about this, working about all these documents. Okay, so now what we have in case of the test plan, okay, that we need to see. So like any document, right? So we will start with something called as introduction is the documentation we are going to have. Okay, so the first part will be introduction. In the sense, usually in the introduction, what we write, what this test plan is about. Okay, so like about which module or about which particular application. Okay, we are going to write that. So that is what we will be having about the introduction here. Okay, in the sense, like what is the main aim of test of this document, okay, of the testing. Okay, so we will be just writing about that the plan. Okay, example, if we just take, okay, this particular test plan is made to test this so and so feature, okay, on this particular site. That's what we will be writing in the test plan document. And again, these documents will be different, may be different, okay, from organization to organization, but the core structure will be the same, the core concept will be the same. A little bit here and there things may be changing. Okay, so we cannot just take it as a black and white, sorry, we cannot have it as a concrete document, because company to company they just have it depending on their experience or depending on the work, kind of work they are doing, okay, or the kind of application they are building. So depending on that, there will be some small modifications to the plan, but the whole entire picture here, what we are going to achieve, that doesn't change using this in the case of the test plans. Okay, so test plan or any document related to the testing, okay, anything related to the testing, things won't change. Maybe the test strategy, maybe the test plan, maybe the test case. Okay, it just changes only from company to company perspective, depending on the kind of work which they are going to do. Okay, so this is the introduction part you have, and the second part will be the scope. Okay, so the first one you write it as introduction, scope. Okay, so when we say scope, what exactly is the scope of the plan? Okay, like one of the scenario, one of the case may be, right, okay, we are writing this particular plan, okay, lists the objectives, or this particular plan is going to talk about only the manual testing for this particular application. Okay, something like that, you can have it as a test plan that we will be writing here. Okay, it can be something like, okay, or we will be saying this particular application is having like 10 modules. Okay, but this scope of this plan is only limited to this particular application and its boundary applications which you have. Okay, like those are the things which you will be writing in the test plan. Okay, now that is the scope. Okay, so what is the exact test? Okay, what is the limitations we are going to have in the test? Limitation is may not be the right word even actually. What is the functionality we will be testing? Okay, so that is what we are going to have the scope. It is limited to this one. That's what you will be mentioning that. Okay, like you cannot have everything. It is you cannot have everything tested out. Okay, in that particular scenario. Example, if you just take it as a Gmail. Okay, so in case of Gmail, if you just take, right, so scope. Let us just take commonly known application Gmail. Let us see. Okay, so you have multiple features here. First of all, you have the login feature. Okay, you have the drop feature. Okay, you have inbox feature. Okay, something like you can just put the scam one. It's called scam, right? Uh, what is this feature called? Spam, sorry, not scam, spam. Okay. Example, okay, you are using this Gmail, okay, and in this Gmail, okay, you have these features, all these features you have, okay. Now, when your plan is to test the Gmail functionality in your Gmail functionality, okay, for Google. Now, when they are going to do this, they will be having the feature, okay, they will be having the introduction as, okay, so the main aim of this test is to test various features in Gmail. Okay, now scope. What is the functionality we'll be testing? It may not be possible to test everything in one test plan. Okay, there will be one team for this one team for this one, like this. Okay, or one team may be doing all this, but not all at the same time. So you may be having something like they may just say that you'll have something like the login. Okay, so you are going to say that this particular test plan feature, the scope of this test plan is only to check the login functionality under Gmail. That is a scope which you are going to define. Okay, and if someone comes with another requirement or another defect or issue under the draft section, you say it is out of scope. Okay, for this particular testing. Okay, that is how we are going to define the scope. And the next one will be the quality objectives will be the next one which you're going to perform. Okay, so quality objectives. What are the objectives you have for this particular feature? Okay, so this, like in this case, like Gmail. Okay, so login. What is the quality objectives which you are going to consider in this case? Okay, like we say that, okay, so spelling mistakes has to be proper. Okay, example, and also it can accept whether only the lower case or uppercase or case sensitivity is there. So that particular type of scenarios, we just have it as a quality objectives. Most of the time, let us say in this case, right, Gmail example, even if you just take it as a Gmail here, what is the objectives we can have here? The major objective which you can think of is when you are trying to use Gmail, okay, you should be able to open Gmail without any problem or seamless access of the Gmail. Okay, let us say in Chrome, I would be able to use that. I should be able to use it in Edge, okay, or I should be able to use it in Firefox, okay. So Mozilla Firefox, right? Yeah. So like this, when you are just going to use that, right? So Netscape, okay. So those are the different browsers which you're going to have. So those browsers on almost all the browsers, okay, you should be able to use it. And if you are using, let us say iOS, okay, example. So you should be able to say that I should be able to open this in the Safari, okay. Or let us say the same Gmail has to be opened in the uh, you can have something called as the mobile phone or laptop. Okay, so those are the objectives which you are going to achieve. In other words, the main work which you are going to have in the test plan is this is the major one which you will be achieving here. Okay, so what is that you are going to achieve here? Because with the objectives can be primary and also secondary objectives should be there. Okay, like you can just list it as primary objectives or secondary objectives also. That aspect will be there in case of the objectives part. And the next one will be the test approach will be there. Okay, so how we are going to test it? Again, it is a manual testing we are going to have, or it is automation testing we are going to have. Okay, so that particular whole entire plan you are going to have in case of the test approach. And remember, these documents go one hand in hand also, okay, at times. Okay, so we were talking about the strategy, we were talking about the plan. So you need to have some information combined. Okay, so is a test approach. Okay, how we are going to have it. Okay, like it is a manual approach you are going to have. Okay, or automation you need to have. So like that, we are going to think about this, the approach you are going to consider. And comes the roles and responsibilities. Okay, like the test strategy when you are going to have, we just say, okay, so these are the roles. Now, at times in the test plan, you may be giving the actual names of the people. Okay, so Like that is the roles and responsibilities you are going to have. Example, we say QA manager, okay, is required, okay, or tester is required, okay. Something like this you are going to have in the roles and responsibilities sections we are going to write in this one. And one more important criteria is the entry and exit criteria you are going to write in the test plan, okay. So moreover, when someone looks at the test plan, right, they should have a clear picture of what is the whole entire testing you are going to perform here. That is what you will be having in the test plan. That is why you even have the entry and exit criteria. Okay. In this case, we will be just writing about what is the entry, means when we need to start the testing, and exit criteria means when we are going to stop the testing. Okay. Like as we were just having in the initial discussion, right? So what kind of tolerance you are going to have? Is it 0% tolerance or 10% tolerance? Okay. Okay. These features are there with the cosmetic errors. That's okay. We just go ahead. Okay. Those kind of things we are going to consider in case of the entry and exit criteria. Okay. We will be writing all this for our test case. Okay. We'll be writing all those. And the next one you will be having, okay, something like suspension and resumption criteria. Okay. Suspension and resumption requirements you are going to write here in this case. Okay. So what is mean by the suspension and resumption we are going to have? At times we may need to suspend the testing, and then we need to come back, okay, to the testing. In case, if you just take it as an example, okay, there is a critical bug which you have, okay, critical bug means or defect, okay. Usually nowadays people are trying to refer to as defect instead of bug, okay. So critical defect you have, okay, it is kind of a showstopper. So we use one word called as showstopper. Okay, showstopper means it is literally a stop you have. Okay, you cannot go anywhere without that particular defect is resolved. Okay, that is where we are going to call it as a showstopper. Okay, so there is a critical defect because of which you cannot even go. Okay, you cannot even continue. It is something like example. Okay, Gmail is there. You are trying to test the Gmail again. Okay, and you want to test the login. Login itself is not working. Where can we test the draft, inbox, and spam, right? So we cannot test anything else. So login page itself is not even opening. A name is not properly rendering. Okay. So like the fields, right? Gmail, when you are going to have fields are not even properly rendering. In that case, we are going to say, let us suspend the testing for now. Okay. Why to just waiting and then sitting and then waiting for the testing to happen. Okay. So it is like in that case, that is a suspension criteria. But when we are going to resume, when you know that, okay, when you hear back from the development team saying that, yes, login functionality is fixed. Now we can start testing it again. So in that scenario, we will be having the resumption. Okay, we are suspending and then we are going to resume the testing back again. That is what you need to list it out. Okay. In this case, we are going to list it out. We are just taking easy examples, but usually those are the scenarios which will be having. Okay. So like network issues. Okay. No one can do anything during the testing. Okay. Something like that. Okay. So, but mainly this login example is like page is not working. Okay. So in that case, is not rendering properly or it is taking too much time. Okay. You just click the login button or sign in button and it takes 10 minutes time to load. Okay. So in that case, there is no point in testing that. Okay. Users cannot wait that. Acceptable time is okay, but it is 10 minutes is not acceptable for anyone. So it is something like that which you need to consider in case of the suspension, and similarly the resumption also you need to mention there. And then comes the next one, it is the test strategy we are going to have. Okay, again we were talking about this test strategy. Okay, so here we need to list out the test strategy here. Okay, So what is the test strategy we are going to just list out at the high level here? Okay. The first one is, okay, the QA role for the testing. Okay. What kind of testing we are going to have? Okay. QA role in this testing. Okay. So we are going to write, obviously we are doing that job. Similarly, the bug life cycle or defect life cycle, we need to write. Okay. So means you're raising a defect that is being assigned to the development team. Development team is working. You are going to test it again. So that list you need to write it here. Okay, in the documentation. Similarly, now coming to the testing types you need to write. Okay. So what are the testing types you are going to consider here? Okay. The first one may be GUI, okay, or UI testing you may be having, okay, and also like the next one will be the integration testing, okay. So examples, I'm just taking a couple of examples here, okay. UI testing you have, or integration testing you are going to have, okay, or something like uh, regression testing you are going to have, or smoke testing you are going to consider. So like this, what are the different types of testing we are going to consider? Okay, so that we need to write it. Okay, so let me just try to modify my Excel so that we cover that one. Yeah, so these scenarios, okay, like these are the testing. You know, UI means it is the graphical user interface, how the letters are looking, whether it is whenever a site is made, right? So there is some kind of color coding is also important. Okay, so we need to make sure that, okay, like everything is properly written there. Let us say development team, they made a screen. Okay, in this case it is white background, we are writing in black. Okay, so likewise they need to make sure, okay, if they just made something, everything as they're writing like white background, white letters. Okay, so can you see anything, or it is like dark yellow background and on top of it dark red color letters. Okay, so that doesn't look nice, or even readability is also not there. Okay, so that has to be taken care for the GUI. Okay, so that particular features we need to see, and also spelling mistakes. Okay, so something like that, whether it is correctly listed or not. Okay, if it is not there, it is a cosmetic errors, it's called. Functionality doesn't affect, but spelling has to be correct. Okay, at times it may send a wrong signal, okay, to the users if you just write a one letter different. Okay, so something like that you need to consider. Similarly, integration. When we say integration, means from one module to the other module, okay, the application has to work properly. Okay, application has to work properly. So like it is a integration has to be properly done. Similarly, regression. Regression in the sense like whenever there is some small change when you have, so because of that change, the existing functionality is not disturbed. Okay, so that particular feature you need to verify. You need to make sure in case of the regression testing. Smoke testing. Usually the smoke testing is performed by the business analyst, okay, in the application. What is mean by the smoke testing? Means, let us say you have the application built, you tested in the development instance. Now you are moving that particular code into the QA instance for the users to test. Okay, you just can't directly move and ask the users to start testing it. Okay, what we need to do is from the once the code is deployed or once the code is moved there, we need to make sure that it is working properly. Okay, as the tester, right? So we need to access the application and then make sure that we are able to see the basic functionalities. Okay, it is you are able to open the application, like in the same case Gmail. Okay, you are able to open in different browsers and you are just able to see the login page. Okay, So those functionalities you need to make sure. That is called as the smoke testing. Okay. And there is something called as a monkey testing also will be there. Okay. People will call something called as a monkey testing. Okay. Monkey testing means it is like you are given an application, you click wherever you want. Okay. Here and there, you just click. It should not impact anything. It should not say, okay, so link not found or something like, okay, 404 bad, okay, bad data, something like that. You should not get that. So that is something called as a monkey testing also will be there. Likewise, these are the different testing types. So which we need to give in the case of the test plan is what are the testing we are going to perform. Okay. It depends on the module we are going to have. If there is any relation between one module to the other module, usually this integration testing and regression testing has to be performed. Or otherwise, you just say only functionality testing. Okay. Functional testing, which you can say. Okay. Like, yes, it is working. Okay. I have this particular feature and I'm trying to access this feature and it is working. Something like that, you should be able to list it out. You have to list it out in the test plan. Okay. And then comes the defect priorities or bug priority we are going to have. Okay. So we will be just writing our bug severity we are going to have. Okay. So we will be giving these details. Okay. Defect severity and defect priority definition. Usually, most of the companies, right, you have like 4 types of bugs, defects which you can give the defects. Okay. So it is something like a cosmetic defect you can have. Okay. It is like a cosmetic defect which you have. Okay. Something like a functional defect. Okay. Whether it is working properly or not. Okay. So this you need to mention that. Okay. So whether it is a cosmetic, okay, or functional you have, or regression problem, okay, something like this which you need to mention here. Now, in case of this, what is the severity? Okay, in case of the severity, we are going to have it as a, most of the time it is low, medium, high, okay, and at times you even give it as a critical, okay. So these are the severities which are going to define, and which this priority definition comes here. Okay. So which type of priority we are going to have. Okay. On what basis you are saying it is low. Okay. So on what basis you are trying to say it is a low priority defect. Example, when you are in a flyer making business, example, right? So spelling mistake. Okay. If it is something like a big corporate application, right? When you are just trying to make it like a login page, little bit here and there. Okay. So name change. Okay. It doesn't it may not matter for them. Okay. Like example, you have a big login page. Okay. You are going to have a registration page. You are supposed to write NAME, and by mistake they write something like, okay, NAEM. Okay. People know that by looking at other columns, that is okay. Even for the technically, it is like the cosmetic, it's called. Okay. It is not going to have any problem in the application. But for whom that particular error is that particular mistake is okay for a big corporate application where they are just going to put their names. Okay. Even if it is checked in the last minute, that's okay. We just fix it in the next release. We are going to fix it. That's fine. If it is internal application, right? No, it's not a major problem. Whereas if you are in a flyer making business, okay, and now this makes a lot of difference for the users. Okay. So people will say that, okay, this guy even can't even do a proofreading correctly, and then they are just into the flyer business. Okay. In a big corporate application, this may be a low one, but whereas in case of a flyer market, okay, flyer making business, this will be a critical one. Okay. So they cannot move it. They cannot move like that. Okay. That is something like which you need to, that is what comes under the priority definition. Okay. Medium. Okay. Which needs to be addressed. Okay. Something like high. High means that needs to be addressed. Okay. But still application is working. Application is still working, but that needs to be addressed, but it cannot survive for a long time. Critical means it's a complete breakdown. Okay, application can't even move anywhere. It is like a critical application. Okay, so something like it is a critical means is a complete breakdown. Okay, it is server has stopped. Okay, our application is totally not even working there. Okay, that needs to be addressed, then only you can continue. Okay, that is something like the critical defect. Okay, we generally in the large applications when we are working, right? So we get into these kind of scenarios. So we need to see that, okay, according to the standards that are defined in the priority. So that you need to write you need to give the severity for the defect, whether it is a low defect or whether it is a medium defect or whether it is a high defect or it's a critical defect which you have, okay. So, and again, when you are just looking at these things, you also need to consider what kind of defect it is, whether it is just a small cosmetic defect we have, okay. So it's okay, like that you need to see. Functional means is the functionality affected, okay. Something like functionality, when I say it is not storing anything into the database, okay, something like that. Regression, just because of this particular functionality, now something else is broken. So those kind of things, depending on that, you need to see the severity as low, medium, high, or critical, and then we need to define the definitions, how we are going to treat, on what basis or what criteria we are going to define the issue or the defect as a low priority defect or the low severity defect or medium severity, high or critical. That's what we need to list it out in the test plan, okay. This is usually when there is any conflict between the teams, they go and open the document. Yes, what did you write? Okay, according to the definition, yes, we do have this one, okay, like that. Recently in one of my testing, right, I had a similar scenario there. We clearly shows that functionality is not acceptable, but they said, okay, no, it is okay. We want to go for that because they already agreed upon. That's what they wrote in the test plan, okay. So like that, which we have. So, and the next one is we need to have the resource and environment needs we need to have. Okay, so what is the environment? What are the resources we are going to have? What is the environment resource we need to list out here? Okay, so the first one which we will be writing is the testing tools. Okay, what are the tools we are going to use? Either it can be manual or either it can be automated. So what kind of tools we are going to use, and configuration management we are going to use. Okay, configuration management, when we say, so it is like what kind of system configurations you'll be using, whether you are going to use it in the Chrome, we are going to test it, or Edge you are going to test it, or Safari you are going to use. Okay, and not only like that, so it is whether you need a LAN or whether you need a VPN, you need to have it, or okay, so or on a Wi-Fi can you use it? Okay, so those all testing that needs to be performed, and also that needs to be maintained. You know, something like moreover, you usually have it as something like a security testing also will be there in applications. Like you will be asked to take your laptop, okay, and sit in an airport or in a Dunkin' Donuts, okay, or whatever. Let us say you have Starbucks coffee, okay, or McDonald's. You are asked to sit there and test it, okay, connecting to their network, okay, connecting to the open network which you have, okay. So you are asked to test that, whether it works, okay, properly or not, okay. So some applications, they say that, okay, no, it should not be accessible. Like whereas in case of Gmail, right, yes, that needs to be, you should be able to access that. Whereas if we just take some other corporate applications, right, some sort of payment processing is there, okay, you cannot just open-ended like that, okay, hackers will be there, people will be looking out for you. So that kind of testing which we need to mention here, okay, what kind of configurations we are going to have, okay, so what kind of testing we are going to have. That is also even the environment. That's why we just call it as the environment, and also the resources. We all need to list it out. Yes, these are the places which you need to test it out, or this is the configuration which you have to test. Okay, so all these, like which patch of the OS you are going to use. Okay, whether you have a new patch that is released. Okay, that information we will be testing it out, or we will be listing it out in the test plan. That is something like the configuration management you have. And then comes the, on the same lines, we have the test environment also. Okay, so in the same lines with this, okay, we need to have the test environment. Okay, we need to have the whole entire setup. Okay, like again, come these two go hand in hand. Okay, configuration as well as the test environment. Which type, whether it can be used on the laptop or not. Okay, whether it has to be a desk laptop or it is a computer you need to have with the CPU and all. Okay, so that information you should need to mention in these configuration as well as the test environment. And the final point in this test planning is the test schedule. Okay, this is the most important one which you have. Okay, in here in this case, you are going to write start date, okay, and the end date when you are going to complete the testing. Okay, we need to write it as the test start date when you are going to start the testing, when you are going to start in the testing. Okay, whereas in this case you are already writing the resources, right? So how many resources we have. Okay, so that information will be writing. Okay, even in the configuration you can write that. Okay, how many people will be using. Okay, human resources or non-human resources also we need to mention there in case of this information. Usually when you are going to have the test schedule, right? So they try to give some buffer time always. Okay, most of the time you should give some buffer time. Example, your plan is to complete that, okay? Or as per some metrics, when you're going to calculate that timing, so you say, I'm going to complete this testing in 10 days, right? Okay, the whole entire functionality. Usually what the people will do is they just give it as a 12 days time. Okay, something like that, which they will be covering in case of this. And at the end, after all this, you will be having the approvals also. Okay, approvals also will be there for this particular test plan. Okay, who actually read this and who approved this. Okay, just like this, having a plan written by anyone, right? So it is not acceptable. Everyone, like the test strategy, all the teams involved parties need to be aware of that, and also they need to approve that particular plan. Okay, so this is all what we are going to have in case of the test plan.